People say, it doesn't make sense. He's a billionaire, from New York, no less. And everything he sits on is gold. How could he possibly connect with the common man? And yet he keeps winning more of them. Trump got trounced by black voters in 2016, so he brought in some muscle from the West Coast, someone he knows black men love, Kim Kardashian. Should Kamala Harris run for California governor in 2026 after polls show her leading? I'm going to give that a big no.
I think she's had her chance several times.
She should run far, far away.
Yeah, I think Kamala Harris would make a great president of a university.
Back with some fundamental stuff. I say rather articulately.
BillMaher isn't about to let failed presidential candidate Kamala Harris off the hook anytime soon. Recently, he tore into her performance during the 2024 elections, exposing the mistakes that cost her credibility and drawing sharp comparisons to Donald Trump's tactics. Maher insisted that if Harris ever hopes to win again, she must face some uncomfortable truths and completely rethink her strategy. As always, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and let's jump straight into the breakdown.
Trump runs for office like that kid in 8th grade who ran for school president on a pledge of more snow days. Okay, I was that kid. Now, could I actually make it snow more? No, but elections are won on the margins by a coalition of little things that hit people personally. Trump gets this. He feels your pain in the...
I have to say, I completely agree with Maher on this one. Love him or hate him, Donald Trump has perfected the art drawing in every type of audience, from diehard conservatives to wary moderates, and even some of his harshest critics. This isn't luck. It's pure, calculated strategy. Consider this. He even managed to win over people like BillMaher and Joe Scarborough, two of his most relentless detractors, simply by doing something Kamala Harris could never imagine, inviting them to dinner. That's the kind of audacious move that shifts the game entirely. Trump doesn't sulk when faced with criticism. He doesn't hide behind excuses. Instead, he flips the script, pulling his critics right into the spotlight alongside him. Maher himself acknowledged that Trump's unconventional outreach was far more effective than anything Harris brought to the table, a harsh reality Harris and her team refused to face.
Kamala ran on democracy, which is the most important issue. But without the political skill to sell it, it added up to nothing. Meanwhile, Trump was running on, I'll make the poop go down. He never shut up about bad shower pressure, shitty light bulbs, and low-flow toilets. Not exactly ask not what your country can do for you, but for some little niche group, it was all that mattered. He's right. It shouldn't take 2 flushes to make my shit go away. That's my guy, YMCA.
This is where Trump's background as a businessman and marketer truly shone. While most politicians stick to rehearsed talking points, Trump had a knack for transforming even the dullest, most overlooked campaign messages into something bold, memorable, and impossible to ignore. The issues he discussed weren't just talked about. They were sold like a product wrapped in drama, showmanship, and an undeniable sense of urgency. That's why his promises lingered in voters' minds long after the speeches ended. Kamala Harris, in contrast, stuck to the traditional political playbook. She focused on the core issues, yes, but she lacked the ability to package them in a way that resonated with everyday voters. The difference was striking. One leader knew how to make politics feel like primetime television, grabbing attention and sparking conversation, while the other delivered it like a dry policy seminar, leaving most audiences disengaged. That gap, ultimately, revealed why Trump's messaging had such a lasting impact compared to Harris's.
People say, it doesn't make sense. He's a billionaire, from New York, no less. And everything he sits on is gold. How could he possibly connect with the common man? And yet he keeps winning more of them. Trump got trounced by black voters in 2016, so he brought in some muscle from the West Coast, someone he knows black men love, Kim Kardashian.
Trump's approach to celebrities was in a league of its own, something Kamala Harris couldn't even come close to matching. While Harris relied on Hollywood to deliver tired cliches and scripted endorsements that barely resonated with everyday Americans, Trump completely flipped the strategy. He didn't just parade famous faces for shallow applause. He made them an integral part of his narrative, guiding them to echo and amplify his core messages. From athletes to musicians to outspoken actors, Trump got celebrities to communicate his ideas in a way that ordinary voters could understand. This made his message travel far beyond a typical political bubble, reaching audiences that Harris's team could only dream of connecting with. The contrast was clear. Harris's celebrity endorsements felt detached, elitist, and more like virtue signaling than genuine persuasion. Trump's, however, came across as organic, almost grassroots, because they were seamlessly woven into his brand. In politics, perception is everything. And in this arena, Trump completely outplayed Harris.
Together, they passed the First Step Act, which scaled back restrictions on felons, a connection he built on in 2024 by becoming one. And then he pardoned Lil Wayne, and pardoned Kodak Black, and the CEO of Jay-Z's company, and the founder of Death Row Records, and the former mayor of Detroit. So it's not surprising that Kanye, and Wayne, and Chris Brown, and Amber Rose, and Snoop, and DaBaby all talked him up. That last one out of professional courtesy.
Trump's move with the black community was a masterstroke that showcased his instincts as a political brawler. By pardoning some of the community's most iconic music stars and cultural figures, he wasn't simply ticking a box. He was making a calculated, symbolic gesture that sent ripples far beyond politics. Bold, headline-grabbing, and deeply personal for many, it was a demonstration of what smart, fearless politics looks like. He stepped into spaces where he wasn't necessarily welcome and did the unexpected. Moves that forced even his harshest critics to pause and take notice. He didn't necessarily flip an entire community overnight, but he chipped away at his opponent's stronghold, winning support where Harris never could. Instead of lecturing or pandering, Trump delivered tangible, attention-grabbing results wrapped in spectacle. Kamala Harris, despite all her rhetoric, never executed anything nearly as daring or effective. That gap highlights the difference between playing politics cautiously and playing it like a strategic game of chess. And Trump excelled at the latter.
Now, did he win the black vote? Not even close. But he doubled what he got in 2020, and in places like Philly, Detroit, and Milwaukee, that was the difference. And now he's going to do it with pot. Finally, he got around to me.
Since taking office, Trump hasn't rested on his laurels or abandoned the unconventional tactics that turned him into a political powerhouse. His latest move, pushing to federally legalize marijuana, is classic Trump strategy. Bold, unexpected, and perfectly timed. And it's worth noting, this is an issue BillMaher has championed passionately for years. If it succeeds, Trump won't just make history. He'll win over an entire subculture of cannabis users, growers, and advocates who never imagined they'd give him credit. Even though he's barred from running for a third term in 2028, moves like this cement his influence and keep him at the center of the national conversation. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris continues to fall short. Instead of launching bold, agenda-shifting policies, she spends her time showing up at conferences outside her expertise, delivering rehearsed speeches and word salads that leave voters disengaged and unimpressed. Trump's strategy, as always, is about impact, timing, and results, something Harris has yet to grasp.
Harris would be the first woman president, first black woman president, and first Asian president. But I don't vote for who will be the first. I vote for who will win. And for whatever reason, Harris has never been popular. You can count the number of delegates she won in the 2020 primaries on one hand, as long as that hand has no finger.
Harris was never truly embraced by voters. From the beginning, it felt like she had been imposed on the public by the DNC power structure rather than genuinely chosen by the people. Her candidacy carried an air of obligation instead of inspiration, a stigma that clung to her throughout her political journey. What made matters worse was her inability to shift that perception during her 4 years as vice president. She had the platform, the visibility, and countless opportunities to connect with everyday Americans, yet she squandered them through awkward interviews, uninspiring speeches, and policy positions that failed to resonate. Instead of cultivating a base of authentic support, Harris relied heavily on party machinery and identity politics, hoping that alone would secure her success. But voters can sense authenticity, or the lack thereof, from a mile away. Despite all the fanfare, despite all the rhetoric, she never managed to win the hearts or minds of the people she aimed to serve.
In 3 years as vice president, she's been quieter than an electric car. Sometimes life isn't fair. It's not fair that she's not popular. She's intelligent and accomplished, and in fact was put in charge of the border. And look at how... Okay, bad example.
This was nothing short of a brutal verbal takedown by BillMaher, a raw, unfiltered, and sharply honest assessment of Kamala Harris's 4 years as vice president. Maher didn't sugarcoat a thing, and he didn't need to. Harris simply never set herself up for success. She was given one high-stakes assignment that could have defined her tenure and showcased real leadership, managing the border crisis. Instead of rising to the occasion, she faltered, retreating into vague speeches, staged photo ops, and political deflections that persuaded no one. For many Americans, this was her audition for presidency, the moment to prove she could handle a national crisis with competence and authority. But when the spotlight was on, she froze, and the opportunity slipped through her fingers. Maher's critique stings precisely because it hits the truth. Harris had one defining test, and she failed spectacularly, leaving voters unconvinced and her critics vindicated.
You know, I mean, I don't know why we ever thought she was as bad as people thought she was. It was like Biden had that one bad night. She had a bad 3 years. But she did. But she's fine. I mean, she's fine.
Kamala Harris's tenure as vice president was, by many accounts, a disaster. Some might even argue she ranks among the least effective vice presidents in American history. Instead of leveraging her historic role to inspire confidence and achieve meaningful results, Harris became known for rambling, incoherent speeches that left audiences puzzled and frustrated. But it wasn't just the word salads. Harris also embraced deeply unpopular, hyper-progressive causes without hesitation. She positioned herself as a champion of cancel culture, where dissenting opinions were silenced rather than debated, and openly supported allowing biological males to compete in women's sports, stances that alienated large swaths of everyday Americans. Rather than uniting people, Harris doubled down on divisive issues that fractured support even within her own party. It's no surprise that her approval ratings never recovered, and her legacy remains heavily tarnished. For many, her time in office will be remembered not for leadership or accomplishment, but for controversy, missteps, and a failure to connect with the public.
Should Kamala Harris run for California governor in 2026 after polls show her leading? I'm going to give that a big no.
She's had her chance several times.
She should run far, far away.
Yeah, I think Kamala Harris would make a great president of a university.
Back with some fundamental stuff. I say rather articulately.
BillMaher delivered the final, unflinching verdict, bluntly declaring that Kamala Harris should run as far away from the presidency as possible. And on this, I couldn't agree more. Harris simply isn't presidential material. But here's the kicker. The other names being floated by the DNC aren't any better. Not Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, not Bernie Sanders, and certainly not Gavin Newsom. Each represents a different shade of the same problem. Policies that fail to connect with everyday Americans and leadership that falters under real-world pressure. In truth, none of them are stronger candidates than Harris. They're just equally unelectable. The Democrats keep recycling the same failed faces, hoping for a different outcome, but all they're doing is digging their own grave. Handing the nomination to any of these figures wouldn't revive the party. It would accelerate its slide straight into political oblivion. At the end of the day, Maher's brutal honesty about Harris mirrors the sentiment of many Americans. Her failures as vice president, combined with her embrace of unpopular causes, have only widened the cracks in the Democratic Party. And the sad reality? The other front-runners aren't any better. Whether it's AOC, Bernie, or Newsom, none inspire confidence. If the DNC continues down this path, they're steering straight toward political ruin. And that wraps up today's video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.